Let us begin the public hearing on the operating millage. Now, our millage in the past, general operating millage last year was 9.4875 mils, general highway 1.85 mils, and general cemetery 0.4125 mils. Our fire millage in the past has been 3.0 mils. Ladies and gentlemen, do you recommend anything concerning the tax rate for the 21-22 tax year?
I don't.
My personal opinion that we're fine where we are.
Fine, okay.
Yeah. And normally I think till we have a better financial picture, I don't think I would be at liberty to say, oh, we should change this, you know, add, subtract, whatever.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
The only thing I would add too, though, is I don't think we've done resolutions on this before, so if we do, in the motion to actually include the numbers too, even though the title of the resolution doesn't have it,
Yeah,
have it in the motion for the record.
I talked to Sean, and he agrees. Because this is such an important part of the village function, is setting the tax rates for the year, it should be a standalone document, not just buried in council minutes. So if someone came up and said, what was the millage rate in 2019, you'd have to go through 12 months worth of council minutes just to see where it was on the agenda. So I think as a standalone resolution, it'll be easier to locate. And again, it's one of the most important functions that we have, is setting the tax rate for the community.
The proposed resolutions have the millage rate in them, right?
It has it in them, but for the motion for the minutes, to include them in there.
Yeah.
Oh.
So do we have any other discussion on the millage rates for the 2021-22 fiscal year? Okay, do I have the motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
Been properly moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
The public hearing is closed at 6:33. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Bellinger? Here. Trustee Gronkowski? Here. Trustee Guerrero? Here. Trustee Meisen?
Here.
Trustee Bertoli?
Here.
Trustee Polly?
Here.
President Pridemore?
Here.
Treasurer Stein? Here. Treasurer Kelly?
Yeah.
Public comment on the agenda. Approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Been moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Approval of the council meeting minutes for May 19th, 2021.
I make a motion that we approve the council meeting minutes from May 19th, 2021.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we have the consent agenda. Clerk Woodside, did we receive all these reports?
Except the sheriff reports, I don't receive those.
We got some.
Okay,
Oh, we
they're
have-
not being forwarded to you?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I had to contact Sergeant Yax, and she sent me a lot of them. I'll forward them to you. I
Okay.
apologize for that.
I think we're missing the DPW.
No, it was in there. It was in one of my, Ms. Lynn's
Okay.
emails.
Oh, okay.
Okay, do we have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Properly moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Payment of bills.
Make a motion that we approve the payment of bills in the amount of $184,245.16 for June 2021. Now, are we doing a separate call motion for payroll?
We could, but going forward, I think what we're going to do is incorporate the two figures into one item and then do the total going forward.
All right, so I'll keep that the same.
Do I have support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Can I get a roll call?
Trustee Mason?
Yes.
Trustee Colley?
Yes.
Trustee Bellinger?
Yes.
Trustee Guerrero?
Yes.
Trustee Popoli?
Yes.
Trustee Pankowski?
Yes.
And President Fryberg.
Yes.
I make a motion that we approve our payroll for May 2021 in the amount of $65,657.20.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. Roll call, please.
Trustee Mason?
Yes.
Trustee Colley?
Yes.
Trustee Guerrero? Yes. Trustee Bellinger?
Yes.
Trustee Pankowski?
Yes.
Trustee Popoli?
Yes.
And President Fryberg.
Yes. Treasurer's report.
The village assets are at $4,866,043.08.
Can you repeat that figure? That's different than what I'm looking at.
It wasn't on my agenda at all, so I got that off of the treasurer's report. Am I looking at an old agenda?
Yeah, I had to revise the agenda.
Okay, I'll have to look up a new one, so I can tell you.
Take out the
Here you go.
You have it? Okay. I must have printed it too early. All right, $4,894,648.84.
Make a motion that we receive and file the treasurer's report.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Clerk's item. Communication and committee reports.
Items for the July 13th agenda are due by July 2nd. Please and thank you.
Planning Commission report. Trustee Bankowski.
Well, the planning commission met on June 1st. We had a workshop first, and we looked at the overall village and the zoning, that the way it sits right now. We talked about changes that could be made and that we are more than likely going to propose to be made. Here's maps if anybody's interested. This is what we worked off of. There's a few things on it that aren't really accurate, so if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any questions once you review it. We were introduced to something called the Gratiot Corridor Authority, and there was some conversation about that. It was just an introduction at first. I'm under the impression, though, that would be something that council would have to bring forward and approve, as the committee could recommend it.
Sure.
But it would eventually, or ultimately come to this table, and I think that's it for now.
Okay, and our Parks and Rec report. Trustee Guerrero.
We met on May 18th, but first and foremost, we had River Days. That was just this past Sunday. That was a huge success. That was a good turnout, beautifying our village of Haven. Talking about Slow Roll and Music in the Park, I know that Tara was in communication with you, President Pryor, about kind of combining it for the fireworks. And then we have magnets and literature going out to every resident. Haven Place is going to help facilitate with that. And just talking about the steppers, yoga, we're just getting everything in line for the summer months.
Trustee Guerrero, is the yoga going to be in the park yoga again?
No, it's going to be here in the
Oh,
village
okay.
hall. Yep. And the flyers that are being mailed out will tell everybody, you know, exactly the dates and whatnot.
Okay, that's
Okay, the new business, we have Yo and Yo with their audit presentation. Michael, go.
Good evening. You guys hear me all right? My name's Mike Rolka. I've been with Yo and Yo for about 10 years and working on New Haven's audit for the past several years now. I have a brief presentation for the audit, which is still in draft form, but I don't expect any changes to the figures at this point. It's just in our final review process. Sorry. Moving to page 2, where we'll discuss the audit opinion. Again, I want to stress that it's in draft form right now, but I expect no changes whatsoever. An audit can only be issued by a licensed CPA firm, and it offers the highest level of assurance. Management's responsibility is for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements, which includes a set of internal controls and monitoring of that internal controls. The auditor's responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements by conducting an audit under relevant auditing standards. What we do is obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatement. I'd like to stress that the purpose of an audit is not to detect fraud. There are other sorts of services for that purpose. In our opinion, we have expressed an unmodified opinion, which means the financial statements have been fairly presented in all material respects of the village. And so that's really the bottom line of an audit, and that's what you're hoping to get out of an audit. You want to hear you have that unmodified opinion. Moving to page 3 is a brief general fund revenue chart for the fiscal year 2021. There's a few things on here that I'd like to point out that you may not be used to seeing. The first one is the dark green section of federal grants, which represented 14% of the general fund's revenues this year. And that was primarily the Community Development Block Grant, which was used for sidewalk improvements. And so that may be a one-off thing that you may not see in the future. The next piece I'd like to point out is state revenue sharing this year was down 5%. And that may sound bad, but if you go back to the start of the pandemic, the state of Michigan was projecting that state revenue sharing would be down as much as 50%. So having a small 5% decrease didn't turn out so bad, really. And we've been seeing that across the state. Lastly, I'd like to point out that property taxes were up 12% over the prior year due to new builds. The other categories were fairly consistent year over year. Page 4 is a similar graph just for the expenditures in the general fund. Everything was relatively consistent year over year, aside from the capital outlay and general government expenditures were up, primarily again due to those sidewalk improvements related to additional funding from the CDBG grant, the Community Development Block Grant, if you're not used to that acronym. And I did want to point out the transfers of $185,000. Again, that was to the sewer fund to help eliminate that deficit. And that has been going on for several years now. The next few slides are 5-year trend charts that I'd just like to point out and let everybody take a quick look at. So the first one is the general fund revenues and expenses, where you can see it in total compared to each other here, the two graphs we just looked at. And again, I want to point out that the revenues and expenses are up this year primarily because of that CDBG grant. And so excluding any of that American Rescue Plan funding you may get, these amounts may come back down. Moving to the next slide on page 6 is the 5-year trend for the water operations. I'm happy to report that revenues exceeded the expenses, and one of the reasons for the big drops there in expense was because there was significant cost for the repainting of the water tower in the prior year. The next slide is the sewer fund operations and the 5-year trend. One of the things I did here is I pulled out the transfer out of the revenue number in the current year. The prior years still have it in there. So you can see just the revenues and expenses this year in the sewer fund are actually looking pretty good, and I expect the sewer fund will be coming out of deficit within the next year or maybe two. Expenses were down slightly in the sewer fund, and that was primarily due to bond issuance costs and higher interest expense in the previous year. The next slide is page 8, and this shows a 5-year trend of the general fund balance. This year there was a dip in the fund balance, which is totally fine to do from time to time, and I'd just like to say the fund balance is stable. We have 2 more 5-year trends here. The water fund trend on slide 9 shows a significant increase in the unrestricted net position. That means that the village is saving some of its funds to help with future repairs. So it increased about $400,000 due to just operating income. The last 5-year trend, I believe, is the sewer unrestricted deficit here. And so you can really see, I'd like to point this out, from the past 5 years, the significant improvements that were made here in the sewer fund at the village. This year, it went to $216,000 versus the nearly $710,000 it was last year. That's a huge gap, especially considering that only $185,000 was contributed from the general fund. So that, I'd really like to point out, I think that's really excellent. And again, I think that if these trends continue, that deficit should be eliminated in fiscal 22. Lastly, I'd like to point out some information in the governance letter, which you will all receive once the audit is issued. This is a letter to the council that has a lot of boilerplate information and additional information if there were any problems or concerns. It describes our auditing processes and significant estimates that were identified in the financial statements, as well as any internal control related matters. The only material weakness and material non-compliance finding we have is that deficit sewer net position, which has been ongoing for several years and should again be eliminated soon, I'm hoping. I do have 3 management comments, which are just considerations for management that do not need to be done. However, they're highly recommended. The first would be to develop federal policies and procedures that are in compliance with uniform guidance, and that would be really over federal awards, because so much federal funding is being kicked around these days. You kind of run into some problems if you trigger a single audit and don't have this set of policies and procedures. I'd also suggest an update to your general policies and procedures, to have them in writing, to make sure if there's ever any turnover, it just flows a little better. Or if there's questions, there's a handbook to look at. And that would be policies such as a capital asset policy, a fund balance policy, maybe a debt service policy, other generic policies. Lastly, we did identify a small amount of sales tax paid on some credit card purchases. I think it was 72 cents, but I am required to report it. Finally, I'd like to thank the council for allowing us to do your audit. I'd like to thank Sandy and her team for being so prepared and open to any questions you guys may have.
Does the final report have more detail behind what's in these slides? So like when there's differences between expenditures and revenue, does it define exactly what those differences are?
There will be a brief section in the management's discussion and analysis that explains some of those changes, but typically for village statements, that's just a 1-year statement, so there's no comparison to the prior year.
Okay.
No, there wouldn't be.
So if I want to compare this year's audit to last year's, I just need to open them up and go side by side and look at the difference between the 2 of them.
Yes.
You guys don't present that each year with a rolling kind of a comparison?
No.
Okay.
No, that's not typical of any governments in the state. So you find that rarely, I would say.
Okay. On the general fund balance, is that just unassigned funds, or is that assets as well? Slide.
Most of it is unassigned fund balance. Let me go back to it.
Slide 8.
Slide 8, thank you. So there's about 5,000 of that is non-spendable for prepaid balances, but the rest is unassigned.
So if I'm reading this correctly, and I'm newer on the council, so just bear with me. So we've got a sewer fund deficit of $216,229.
Yes.
In a surplus, well, surplus is probably a bad word to use, but we've got a fund balance of $1 million, or $995,000.
Yeah, just over $1 million, but remember, some of that's going to be tied up in receivables, some of it's tied up in liabilities that have to be paid out.
Okay,
so it's not a straight cash balance.
Okay, but then I'm going to go back to the unassigned funds. It's not just 5,000. There's more that's actually.
Yes, perhaps that might be a different discussion, but yes.
Yeah. So
from an accounting standpoint, the unassigned fund balances is just over $1 million, but some of those funds, that would be assuming you liquidate all of your assets and all of your liabilities.
Right. It goes back to the discussion that we had on the phone.
Yes, correct.
By the way, I'm Mark.
Yep.
Talking on the phone. So again, I'm just trying to find some clarity of more of a lay person's point. I get the accounting piece of it. I'm trying to kind of see it in more of a black and white.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a debt that I think somebody looks at this and goes, why do I have a debt? Somebody explain to me why the village has $1 million and I'm still paying just I've got $216,000. Isn't that one vote away from zero debt?
So you'll have to recall that you can't always liquidate your assets and your liabilities instantaneously.
Right.
So you have to rely on the timing aspects there, as well as whatever cash balances and cash flows you typically have.
But it goes back to that discussion about a true understanding. And again, I'm kind of just, I think for our edification and the residents that I've talked to, it's more of a clear, I think what we have to do is show that clearer. Right, because again, somebody looks at this without your eye, right, without your experience or your training, and goes, again, $1 million,
sure.
16,000. I agree to take, to pull that out of, Again, I know it's not that simple.
Yeah.
But it goes back to President Pridemore about the discussion about what is truly disposable income in a fund balance, again, I'm struggling with terms because they mean something to different folks.
Sure.
But, unassigned funds are not all available to us to do whatever we want to do with, right? So, but there is a number. That's what we can do with as a village, and I'm very interested to see to our agenda item, which is reduce debt to bills to the residents, which is, can we get rid of that $216,000 within trade space that's well within what we'd all agree is a proper fund balance reserve to have. We've had discussions about what's that number. It's something for us to probably debate and decide. I think that going across the state is 15 to 35%. I think you echoed that as well in our discussion. So what is the true balance that's available? What is 15 to 35% of that? What's on top of that? Can we go? And that's where I think what I'm hoping that we can bring, that I can continue to discuss on the Ways and Means Committee, bring up to the council ways to get after what you asked us to look at, and the council wanted us to look at is how can we get rid of that? And I just think it's worth the discussion point to talk about. It's not as simple as chart 8 and chart,
right.
Whatever
the key point there is to remember, chart 8 assumes every asset and every liability is completely liquidated as if you're going out of business.
That's not happening.
Right.
So, thank you.
To that point, I asked Michael about a workshop for council so that we can get an in-depth understanding. I apologize for my voice. I think I'm going to lose it as the night goes on. Get a better in-depth understanding of municipal finance, setting a fund balance policy. What is this fund? What is this fund called? What is the purpose of this fund? And we were talking possibly the end of July. Sometimes he's going to send me a available dates.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna talk with Sandy. We're gonna come up with a wish list, and I want all of you to give us ideas on what questions you would like answered about municipal finance, so we can get a better understanding and set a more stable and possibly predictable financial way forward for the village. So if you would, when you get a chance, just let us know the dates, and
Sure.
we'll shoot them past you guys, and I'd like to have as many of you present as possible. And again, think of any questions that you have, send them to me or Sandy, and we'll get an outline of what we'd like to discuss at the workshop. Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions or concerns? Thank you, Michael.
All right, thank you. Everybody have a nice night.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Okay, we will now set the 2021 operating millage rate as discussed at the public hearing. Gentlemen, what is your pleasure?
What would be the resolution number?
2021-004.
So I'll move to pass resolution 2021-004, a resolution establishing tax millage rates for the 2021 fiscal year, which sets the general operating at 9.4875 mils, general highway at 1.85 mils, and general cemetery at 0.4125 mils.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Can I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Coley?
Yes.
Trustee Meissen?
Yes.
Trustee Guerrero?
Yes.
Trustee Bankowski?
Yes.
Trustee Bellinger?
Yes.
Trustee Cowley?
Yes.
And President Pridemore.
Yes. Okay, let us set the 2021 fire millage rates.
Resolution number would be 2021-005.
And I'll move to pass resolution 2021-005, a resolution establishing a fire protection special assessment millage rate for the 2021 fiscal year, which sets the fire protection special assessment at 3.0000 mils. Support.
It's been properly moved and supported. Can I get a roll call?
Trustee Coley?
Yes.
Trustee Meissen?
Yes.
Trustee Cowley?
Is this one I should abstain from, or?
Yeah, you good.
Yeah, abstain.
Okay. Trustee Bellinger?
Yes.
Trustee Guerrero?
Yes.
Trustee Bankowski?
Yes.
And President Pridemore.
Yes. The Manning and Main paving repair.
Well, good evening. DPW and I inspected the corner at Manning and Main a few weeks ago, and it looks like from last assessment that we did from last year, this corner kind of deteriorated a lot faster than we expected. So we don't have any plans for rehab. However, we do have a bid coming in for Margot and James Curtin, and we can certainly add that area as a change order if council agrees. We will get bid prices rather than hire a contractor separately to do that intersection. And it's almost, what was it, like 80 feet in or 40 feet in by the total width. So it's just the opening that we're trying to fix at this point.
And what kind of condition would you say? I mean, can you give us specifics? Is it concrete cracking, potholes? What?
This is completely failing concrete, so it's crumbling like powder at this point. And if you look at the south side, you can see that there's a curb and gutter is gone completely, which is really strange for that condition. Because last year when we did the assessment, the PASA rating was at 4, which is, you know, it's trying to hang in there, but right now it's like a 1. So it needs to be replaced right away.
Okay. Is there any way you can kind of give us a ballpark idea?
Ballpark. I wouldn't ask for your approval. Let's get the bid for.
Okay.
I think they're due on the 6th of July, just before your next meeting. Once we have those numbers, we'll bring it back for you so you can approve it as a change order.
Okay, is this an intersection or is true?
This is immediately north of Main, on Manning. So we're not doing any work on Main, it's just Manning opening.
Okay.
So the two flares coming in from,
And the approach.
Okay, do I have a motion to add this rehab to the bid for the Margot and James C. project, James Curtin project?
So moved.
Support.
Properly moved and supported, all those in favor? Opposed?
thank you.
We don't go anywhere, let's talk about the sidewalk project.
That's what I mean. Thank you again, President Craigmore. I believe the council has received my communication dated June 2nd. We received 4 bids for the sidewalk rehab this year. And the low bidder was JV Contractors at $259, $358, and 50 cents. They've been around, they're out of Detroit. We believe they are capable of doing the job. We didn't see any items in their bids that unbalanced or critical to disqualify them. They are going through the motions with Macomb County to approve them as a qualified contractor, but Macomb County did not object to their bid. So we are recommending that JV Contractors be awarded this job contingent upon approval by the county and supplying acceptable bonds and insurance to the village.
And they were the low bid, correct?
They are.
And we don't have those bids in our packet, correct?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You did.
They're in there.
They're in
Is it in the zip file or?
No, it came out.
It just came.
This is another one of those random emails we got?
All right, I told you I was annoyed with myself.
It's hard to keep up on all the emails.
You should have a recommendation, the bid tab, and the individual bids with that bond.
Sidewalk rehab program 2021 bid tab.
All right. All right, do I have a motion?
I'll move that we award the bid for the sidewalk rehab project for 2021 to JV Contractors in the amount of $259,358.50, contingent upon approval of the county and acceptable bonds and insurances.
Support.
Been moved and supported, can I get a roll call?
Trustee Capoli?
Yes.
Trustee Bellinger?
Yes.
Trustee Mason?
Yes.
Trustee Colley?
Yes.
Trustee Bonkowski?
Yes.
Trustee Guerrero?
Yes.
President Pridemore?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mrs. Craigmore, if I may, this is sidewalk related. At one point, we had marked throughout the village sidewalks, and then we backed off on that. Are we gonna revisit that?
Yeah, that was an economic issue for our residents, but yeah, we certainly can.
I think we should.
Yeah. Why don't we bring it up at the July meeting, and we can set a date.
Perfect, thank you.
Clerk, but second, you add that to the July agenda? Thank you. All right, the annual Smart Bus contract.
Good evening. Good evening. Madam President, members of the Village Council, I'm Jeff White with Richmond Lennox EMS. Tonight I'm here to talk about your annual agreement with SMART, where the SMART Authority for Buses provides municipal and community credits to the community for the purpose of providing local community transportation options for your residents. Since 1999, Richmond Lennox EMS has worked with SMART and the Village of New Haven to provide that service on what we call our small buses to your residents. Certainly, like for all others in the world, the last 14 months has been challenging in the transit business, if you will. And while we've seen some reduction in riders, what we did not do was reduce vehicles from the road. The reason we did not do that is because we wanted to be able to still provide service to those most in need, folks in need of medical care and to get to the grocery store for food and things like that, and be able to do it on buses where, as opposed to them being packed full of people, you know, had just a few people on them to ensure proper social distancing and hopefully avoid where we could the spread of the coronavirus. To give you some idea, in 2019, in the 365 days before the virus started, we were transporting about 2,800 people in the village of New Haven for various appointments and other things. And during the COVID period, the past 12 months of the COVID period, we're at about 1,450. As of today, really as of about 2 weeks ago, we've reopened transit to any rides for any reason, basically. So we're doing more than just the essential trips now. Again, for our riders, so if somebody wants to go, we have people who go to the hairdresser or other places that they might go on our buses. We return all those trips. We've returned trips which have become very popular before COVID down to the airport. We do a trip a day down to Detroit Metro Airport, take people for flights. All of those have been now restored as about 2 weeks ago. You know, SMART is always viewed as certainly as a transportation organization, and you know, that is certainly their primary role, but I want to give a whole lot of credit to the folks at Smart Bus who worked with us using some of those millage funds that get paid to Smart Bus every year, as well as federal dollars to help us with what was a very successful program to vaccinate a number of people here in our community. We were good at vaccinating. The health department was good at getting us the materials to vaccinate with. But nobody was good at scheduling tens and hundreds of thousands of people to get vaccines. So Smart Bus, our organized, a friend of ours in the back of the room, said, you know, we have rooms full of many, many, many call takers who every day schedule people to ride on Smart Buses. We don't have a lot of people riding Smart Buses right now, so we can convert all those call takers to people to make appointments for vaccines. It worked amazing. And you know, I'm pretty pleased with the fact that between SMART and the health department and the EMS role in this, you know, we were able to vaccinate 16,000 people at our headquarters on 32 hours. And that was in no small part to the folks at SMART. So if anybody's ever questioned what role SMART has in a little tiny community where we don't have big buses running down the road, I think certainly, you know, the pandemic proved their worth over and over again to all of us. Really, all else I want to mention about the pandemic is I'm glad this year is coming to a close for most of us, or at least the numbers seem to be going down quite a bit. But having said that, the only pushback we're getting occasionally with our bus operation is right now the CDC, because some of SMART funds are federal, we're obligated to follow those. The CDC treats any bus, no matter how big or small, as public transportation. So basically planes, trains, and in this case buses, if you will, still require, there's still a CDC requirement that both vaccinated and unvaccinated people wear a mask. So sometimes when we tell the vaccinated folks, you still got to put your mask on to get on the bus. We're occasionally getting a little bit of pushback. I share that with the audience. I share that because I know there's a camera behind me where people watch this. And it's not the rule of Richmond Lennox EMS, and it's not the rule of SMART that you wear a mask on these buses. It is the rule of the CDC currently, and that rule will look like it will be in place until at least the first part of July. So as you ride the bus, if you don't have a mask when you get there, we'll actually hand you one. We don't tell you things on the bus. We'll just hand you a bus or a mask to put on. You know. One really exciting change to our service that we were able to also work on during the pandemic. There were some other things that were going on. We're always looking at ways to improve service. Is we were able to, with some funds that came through SMART again, and through some communities who had some uncaptured SMART dollars and some other grants, we're actually able to purchase a large bus. So as opposed to just our small airport-sized shuttle buses, we hope in about November, they're just taking a while to come because of all the manufacturing delays right now, we will actually own a large enough bus that if you want to take it down to a Tiger game, or some other community-like recreational event, we will have one of those available for the community. And all we'll be asking, since you share that, if you will, with a number of your neighboring communities, is if you want to use it for one of those events, we encourage you to use it. But we're going to be telling people, call early and call often, because there will only be one of them. And so we'll have to schedule everybody in to be able to use that. We're going to be excited to be able to get that purchase of about $138,000, and it is ordered and on the way. But like I say, a bit delayed by some of the manufacturing issues that all the auto companies are dealing with right now. But it's a regular kind of school bus size kind of vehicle. So we're looking forward to having that. So with that, tonight I'm here to request, again, your municipal and community credits to continue funding the transit operation. And this year, those amounts, finding on this page, basically total are $4,560 in what's called municipal credits, $8,126 in what's called community credits, for a total of $12,686 to fund our operation. The community also has about, I think it's $8,700, just shy of $9,000 in funding that is available in past year's funds that were never used. So if you do decide you want to do a trip with a charter bus, we hope we all get to return things we'd always done, right? And so we're not asking to touch any of those funds. So if you did want to do a charter trip through your recreation or senior departments here, you would still have funding available to do that. So, I don't know if any members of the village council have any questions that I can answer.
I just have a compliment. I was a fortunate recipient of the vaccine at your Richmond spot, and it was like well-oiled machine. Good job.
Thank you. It went really well, but it really was a tremendous partnership, like you say, like nothing I've ever seen before between the folks at SMART and the folks at the health department and those of us at EMS that got to look good. But there's a lot of other people behind the scenes that wouldn't happen without them. So we really appreciate that.
I would just like to echo Trustee Bonkowski's sentiments, and sorry if I ended up flooding you with a number of requests for getting on your waiting list. It was much appreciated.
Not at all. I certainly respect people's rights to be vaccinated. I can tell you, after 14 months of this as a paramedic, we only wish we could continue to be flooded because unfortunately we're not doing vaccines right now. Not to get too far off topic, but it's really because we just have no demand for them right at the present time. So we still, those of us that dealt with this for 14 months, are still encouraging folks to get vaccinated, and we'll find a way to give you a vaccine if you call us, even though we don't have them at EMS right at the time. With that, Brad Barbarett's back here. I just want to recognize him because I mentioned him a couple times during this. I don't know if he had anything he wanted to add, just real briefly.
Just wanted to be here if anybody has any questions. Working with Jeff has been great. We fielded like 30,000 calls. We transported about 1,000 people, 5, 6 at a time, up to the site. And actually, my wife and kids all drove up to the site. We got our vaccinations there too. So if you haven't gotten vaccinated, I certainly encourage you to do it. But I feel safer about it, and I still have to wear a mask.
Parks and Rec. So the charter bus will be available starting in November.
We hope. I mean, as soon as it's available, okay. we'll make it. We'll let the communities know. I'm sure we'll bring out and show it to you.
Okay, great. And then, did you send us contact information, how to contact because part of the Parks and Rec to make sure that?
Absolutely. So I'm going to send somewhere here for you. I brought some little reports with some pictures of the bus and things that we're getting. So I can leave them maybe with the president here or something. I didn't want to violate any of your rules for this saying to hand these out. But I brought some copies that have all the contact information, whether it's for the bigger bus or the smaller buses. That'll be here for you. It's got some photos and a floor plan of the new bigger bus and what have you. So I can leave those with the president. That's okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or concerns?
Is the motion that we're making for the full amount, the combined amount? There's a resolution.
Sure, it's going to be a resolution. What's the resolution number?
2021-006.
Make a motion that we adopt resolution 2021-006, a resolution to approve receipt and award the municipal and community credits to Suburban Mobility Authority for Regional Transport, otherwise known as SMART, pursuant to the Michigan State Trunk Line Highway System Act in the amount of $12,686.
Second.
It's been properly moved and supported. Can I get a roll call?
Trustee Meissen?
Yes.
Trustee Foley?
Yes.
Trustee Holly?
Yes.
Trustee Bellinger?
Yes.
Trustee Bankowski?
Yes.
Trustee Guerrero? Yes. And President Price?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
DPW seasonal worker posting, I think normally we try to get 2. Okay. And hourly rate was $12. I need a motion to allow us to post 2 seasonal worker postings for our DPW at $12 an hour.
I make a motion that we post 2 seasonal job openings for DPW at $12 an hour.
Support.
Properly moved and supported. All those in favor? All opposed? Car park catch basins.
Pull this down for a second. Good evening. This is a continuation on the catch basins that E&J have been doing throughout the village. I decided to prioritize areas. So I'm going to start with the Coral Park. We went through, we pulled lids, inspected, and we're going to put a list together to Coral Park. This is the list. We're going to move to Amherst, just keep them locked up and subdivisions. I'm trying to be more proactive than reactive, not wait till they're torn apart totally, think of, do total rebuilds. So we're trying to get ahead of the curve on maintenance. So in front of you, you have the Coral Park basins list, and I'll just, sorry to say, but I'll keep them rolling. Like probably every month you'll get a list from some subdivision that, because we used to jump around a lot, and it just got kind of, a little crazy jumping around. Now let's just go in one spot, get them done, go to the next.
What is the difference between a partial rehab and a full rehab?
A partial rehab is they could go in and they can re-mortar, or it might only be like 2 layers of brick. A full rehab is a full replacement, bottom up. Yes. And we're trying to catch them while they're partials, because when they get the fulls cost a lot more, and it's a lot more work.
Any questions?
That's executed within the current budget, right?
Yeah.
Other than supplies.
Yeah.
that you go by.
Now the catch basins on Main Street, like the one that I showed you that was lifted up, when are those scheduled to be?
They're done.
Oh, well, never mind.
Yes.
You're that good.
They're done.
Okay.
Yep, they're done. They have rip wrap. They're done. They were done last week.
Anyone have any questions or concerns? Have the motion is in order.
That's within their, that's within their normal.
I have it in my notes.
I'll make a motion to approve the cost for the Decorah Park catch basins in the amount of $22,720.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Roll call.
Trustee Foley?
Yes.
Trustee Guerrero? Yes. Trustee Bellinger?
Yes.
Trustee Bankowski?
Yes.
Trustee Meissen?
Yes.
Trustee Colley?
Yes.
And President Price?
Yes.
Can I add one thing? just in case anybody's like wondering if we don't go to Pembroke right away, it's so much construction traffic. We don't want to touch those right away. We want to wait till, you know, that second phase or whatever gets started, and maybe they can come off of Gratiot and stop, you know, because we looked at a few and the roads they're beat up out there, so we don't want to start replacing catch basins and they're just going to drive right back over them with the construction trailers and things of that sort. And the core north, this is, you know, mostly just in the core, not the core north, so just to clarify that because of the construction. But the core north, actually, they're pretty good out there. They were built sound.
I think you guys just replaced one on the north.
Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah.
I just have a question. You said that every month you're going to come by, we're going to have a $20,000.
No, it might be lower.
Okay.
This is the idea. We can do some, or I can do every other month, but I want to be proactive. I talked to President Pridemore, and I want to be more proactive to get these done because if they fail, they fail. So you can go from paying a partial to a full. So, you know, it's the council's choice. You know, I can keep them rolling, and then one day it'll be like, we're done. Or we can.
Yeah, I'm all for getting ahead of the curve. I just want to know what to expect in the future.
It all depends on the conditions. Okay. Yeah, it depends on the conditions. Some of them, they're mortar good. The idea is to do a whole one piece, but a lot of them are brick and mortar. So the mortar is from the acidity from the soils or the groundwater and stuff. It eats it away. Now you have, you know, if you did all precast, we're good to go. But they're not all precast. So we're, you know, a lot of these are brick and mortar, and you can get whoever out there slap it in, but we're good. Now we're paying for it now.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, you can,
You're
yeah,
not-
so you can stay up here because you're talking.
Yeah, just like that.
Yeah. Where you go? Okay, we did receive 3 quotes for painting services in the DPW building. Did everyone get a copy? We got one quote from a company called Brightway in New Baltimore. And most of them for the painting services all quoted the same services. Power washing, priming, painting, tuck pointing on the exterior of the building. We all know how bad the building looks. So the company Brightway, for power washing, scraping the building, caulk where necessary, priming, mask and protect any unpainted surfaces, spray and roll, back roll all the walls using 2 coats of Sherwin-Williams and labor and materials. The quote came in at $17,250. And we had another quote from a company called Custom Painting. And it was the same ballpark figure for the same ballpark services again. Primer, super paint, power wash and scrape again. That quote came in at $17,293. Then we got a quote from a company called Envision Finishing. And they gave us a list of services they could provide. Exterior paint, again, the $17,900 ballpark figure the other 2 companies quoted. But they also included quotes on gutters for $7,000, roof coating system for $31,000. Their grand total would be over $56,000. So the building is the cold storage building?
Yes.
Okay. And all of the companies mentioned that there was rotting wood over the door.
There's rotting wood over the garage door.
The garage doors. Is that something we can do at DPW?
We can probably do that.
Do it in the house? Okay. Are there any other concerns that these companies did not address that you felt?
The biggest concern is like even at your house, you want to go from the roof down. Make sure the roof is good. You have to have gutters on the building. You have to, or white paint it. You have to tuck point, white paint it. If we just put paint on it and scrape it, we'll be doing it in a couple of years. That's the big issue. You know, it has to be done correctly. You know, put a roof, you know, do the roof system if you choose to. gutters. You have to have gutters, because not only will it deteriorate the paint, but it also, you know, it just beats up the building with the water, you know, just like a house. You know, you have to deflect the water to go somewhere. Tuck pointing, if you go inside the building, you can see outside. Sometimes natural, you know, if it's a sunny day, you don't need to turn the lights on. So it needs to be tuck pointed. That's for sure. And that's actually one of the biggest things. You know, so it all depends on what you want to do. If we want to rehab the building and make it last, then we're going to spend some money. If we just want to put lipstick on a pig, then
The problem is when we are addressing blight in that area, almost to a man, they're pointing at the building and going, well, you let that building look like, and I know, oh, there we go. So I think we do need to do paint at least, but the roof itself, what are they talking about on the roof?
as I was explained, the person explained to me, it's almost like a tower, but it's called a Geico roofing system, and it's like a 45-year guarantee. And you know, it's all one color. It's like redoing the roof. It's a roll-on instead of doing how people do tower roofs, but it's a different system, and yeah, and it's guaranteed. And
Now, would the existing roof structure support that?
yes, yeah, they put it on steel and things of that sort, flat roofs.
Okay, and the gutters, there are no gutters on that building?
The gutters are done. They're on the building, but they're just there now. Yeah, they need to be replaced, and you can see as where the gutter systems have failed that even next to the foundation of the building, it just beats, and then what next you know, the foundation is going to go away. So you have to have a gutter system.
Okay, now you said it's a cold storage building. What is the building used for?
We store our sweeper, backhoe, sewer can, Vector, jetter, dump trucks. It's cold storage because we're not, you know, you go get and we leave. The front part of it is heated, so not to throw something out there, but it probably needs to be glass block windows done also. Just saying, but just to make it more efficient. That's the thing, you know. So we use it for all the storage, all our weed whips. The new building is, you know, we have 2 trucks in the new building, and we do carry small stuff because it's not a lot of space, you know, in the new building. But that's a big building. It's 60 by 180, I believe. I think that's what it says, or something like that. So it's a big building. We store everything in there. Yeah, we store all our water hydrants, water main parts, clamps. So it's a storage building for the whole shebang. Now, if we want to build a new building, we'll probably pay like $400,000. That's so, you know, what's your choice? I'd say rehab the old one. And
The current condition of the roof now, would it pass our code?
So not to throw a wrench in the plan, but I was working to obtain bids as well, and the first guy that I had come out did a lead-based paint test, and it came back negative. But last week I had someone come out and they swabbed a different area, and it came back positive. And the process for remediating lead-based paint is going to be significantly more expensive than the $17,000 number. And I guess I would propose before we move forward with anything that we get an independent environmental testing company out to see if we truly have that problem.
Yeah.
Because if they start power washing that building, those lead-based paint chips are airborne.
Well, if you wanted the lead-based paint, you have to remediate it. You don't have
And it
to-
has to be a company that has that certification to do so.
Okay, well, this is new news, so I'm going to suggest that we table the discussion right now and we'll get somebody out there and test it all the way around the building and see if areas have to be remediated.
The other thing, just from a standpoint of the bid that's at $56,000, I'd like to see 3 competitive bids for the full kit and caboodle versus just saying these 3 companies said paint for 17, this one said 56. They should get it because it's more I mean, I know that we're not proposing that
Well,
anyways,
all three companies painting the building, isn't the ballpark figure?
Sure, but if we're considering doing anything bigger than that, I think that we should probably,
Well, this will give us an opportunity to do that,
yeah.
but I think the most important thing is the lead paint remediation.
Okay.
So if it's okay with all of you, we'll table this discussion until next month, and we'll make contact with the appropriate agencies.
Do we need a motion to,
Table?
no, a motion to, hire a company for the testing? I mean, we don't have a number on it,
We
but
don't
I
have
think
a company
it's.
yet.
Okay.
So then we get the information.
Okay.
We'll bring it back in front of council if you get the company and give the findings.
Sure.
And we'll try and get this taken care of.
Okay,
Thank you.
sounds good.
And the company that came out, just for the record, that had the positive test was Jolly Painting, Jolley. I was calling all of them.
Where did they test on the building?
I can find out.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a phone number for them.
Yeah.
Do you have enough money in your fund balance right now to pay that bill, 56,000?
I'm sure I do. I should have.
So I mean, that would be, because if I, looking at the numbers, it looks, again, I still struggle a little bit with these fund balances, but it looks like there's somewhere around at least 329,000 in the fund balance for the building fund right now. So I don't know if there's other, what's that?
There's nothing to do with it, that's the building department, that's the permits and stuff.
Sorry.
It's like for houses. Permitting.
But the building, okay, well that's, okay. I'll touch base with you, that's not what we discussed when I did the budget slides.
That's right. But yeah, we'll take care of it, and then we'll bring it back to in July.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, the Eagle Cross Connect program, we went through this last month. There was a question about doing it in-house. It would be cost prohibitive to do it in-house. We're not going to do it in-house. So our two options are, do we post it on the website, leave it up to the residents, give them reference materials, phone numbers they can call. They have to get the house inspected once every 5 years. I think some of the ballpark figures for calling someone who was ASSE certified was how much again?
It differentiates, it all depends on the company, but the tested devices, you can go from, some are $100 and some can go a little higher. So it's a fluctuating market, so to speak. But if you get a bunch of houses like we have, and I'm pretty sure we could get a better deal, better rate.
Or we have the other option of going with a company like HydroCorp. I think there may be another company out there. I talked to the representative with 3,000 rooftops, approximate $3,000, and that would include Meadow Creek, Riverbrook, and some of our commercial buildings. It would run approximately $10 a year per household. It would be one line item on their water bills, and they would generate all the reports that we would just have to mail into the state. They would notify the residents in advance when they were going to go through their backyards to test the outside spigots, faucets, and whatever else they have in the backyard. The cost savings to the residents would be about $50 every 5 years. So we have two options. Have the residents do it, where we would have to compile the reports who is not in compliance and then go back and generate the reports, or contract with a company like HydroCorp.
I still have a point of contention with it is, from what I understand, I don't know if Marcus, if you know, or if it's our attorney that knows, but from my understanding, what I was reading, the only testing that needs to be done is to the pressure valve, right?
Yes.
The sprinkler irrigation.
Yes, it's called a pressure vacuum breaker. You will not test any spigots. Anything that's testable, you will see these little ports that are test ports, and it's only your pressure vacuum breakers, which are on your sprinkler systems. That's the only testing device that will be tested in the house, at a house.
So my reservation with doing, I like the idea of just the village, saying, okay, $10, but if somebody doesn't have a sprinkler system.
I don't know what you were reading, but when I talked to the gentleman at HydroCorp, they will test if you have a hot tub. They test that. If you have a sprinkler system, they test that. If you have a sprinkler, they make sure that you have that that
Well, is that they will test or they're required?
they go in the backyard and make sure you have it.
What are you testing on a hot tub? There's no
There's
cross.
a backflow.
No, but it's a standalone system.
Well,
It's like my in-ground pool is in no way connected to my house.
Well, but that's what the state, Eagle.
That's not what I read.
Right, that's not what
I read a lot about this too, and like the certified plumber thing, I'm not
It
tracking
doesn't
it.
have to be, it has to be ASSE certified, not the master plumber.
No, I know that. And so, and to get that certification, it's like $14,000. To go have one of our people to get the certification is like it's like a week-long class to go and get. I'm not saying, that's where we go, but I'm just, I think we should do some more research on how we do this internally and look at, you got the summer hire piece. Is there because when we're talking about a plumber, a business will charge you to bring a plumber in for $100 an hour. But you're not going to pay a plumber $100 an hour right here. We're not going to pay a plumber $100 an hour. We're going to pay him the fair wage, which in the state of Michigan is $14 to $21 an hour.
When you call up, let's say your sink backs up and you have to call the plumber, what does he charge you before he walks into your door?
That's not what I'm talking about.
But that's what they're going to charge.
No, that's not. But that's not the example I'm making. The example I'm making is we have somebody trained to do it, and I'm paying him $18 an hour, and he does however many he can do in a week, in a day. And it's not that $100 an hour, and then it's also not the 10. I think there's some more research to do in that, and I could be wrong on, when you go out and Google, it's not the same as you going and doing it and saying you're going to go get somebody certified, right? Because you're going to check the block and dot the I. But I think there's an easier way in a smaller village, maybe, to get to that. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
There's a difference. I think we're getting kind of mixed up. There's inspections and there's testing. Inspections is, they can walk around your house, something on this spigot, things of that sort. Those are just inspections. That's $25 or whatever. That's just an inspection. They can make a recommendation, please put a spigot on the north side, the south side. That's all they will do. That's an inspection. You get an inspection report. The testing, when that guy comes out with those instruments, you're gonna pay. It costs money. It costs money.
And why can't you guys do that for me?
Because you have to be a certified plumber to do that.
Which again is not, I just think this needs more research, right? So if you can do a business that has a sprinkler system, you do that for the businesses right now, right? Or the DPW does that for the businesses in the village right now.
You do inspections, we don't do any testing.
So we're not in compliance with businesses either. So we're not even in compliance. I thought in the last meeting.
The businesses hire their own people to test it, and they send the test report saying, we're not certified.
I think I misunderstood that in the last meeting we had.
Yeah, we'd have to hire probably another DPW person. We'd have to probably hire another clerical person because it's 3,000 rooftops. They'd have to get all the reports. They have to collect the reports. They'd have to report it to the state. Then we'd have to do follow-up with the people that are not in compliance. When they are in compliance, then we get that paperwork back, and then we have to generate this report to the state, and we have to keep track of these homes. So that would be, it would be hiring 2 additional people to do it.
Really? You think it's too?
Yeah, you know what this is.
We have no analysis, but there's no analysis behind that. You're just saying.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I mean, all I'm saying is maybe some more research before we just go throw $10 on everybody's bill a month while we're trying to do a sewer debt, right? We're trying to remove a sewer debt, and then we're going to throw a book and say, hey, I just took $15 off, and I put 10 back on.
And you might not even have a sprinkler systems or even require the test. So you're paying.
And you still have to go in the backyard and look at the spigots. You still have to. And those are the reports I saw.
Didn't you just say there is no spigot inspection?
They're called inspections.
Test.
If you do an inspection, the spigot doesn't have a backflow preventer on it. They would just make a recommendation.
They have to go in your yard and make sure you have a
that's all. That's a recommendation.
But is that part of the Eagle Cross Connect that they have?
No, the cross connection, the testable devices are the sprinklers, those things.
So for the Cross Connect with Eagle, the only thing that Eagle is worried about is the pressure vacuum breakers.
Yes, those are on testable devices. Those are cross connection devices.
So the $10 that the village would be paying per house is only for them to test the pressure vacuum break.
But to also inspect the property to make sure they have the backflow devices everywhere else.
If you want to do the inspection. also.
I just found a brochure on the Michigan website, and hazards that threaten homeowners: hose connections, lawn irrigation systems, chemically treated heating system, water softeners, hose connections to a water outlet or laundry tub, swimming pools, solar heating systems, private non-potable water supplies, water operated cell phone devices.
Right, but now if you go to any of the other communities and you see what paperwork they require the residents to actually submit, the only thing they're requiring the residents to submit is the pressure vacuum break.
Yes, the tested devices.
Right.
What they're gonna look as far as the swimming pool, like, if you have a hole sitting in your swimming pool and hooked up to your spigot, that's a cross connection. Because it could get back siphoned into your house. That's just an inspection. They'll say, take that hose out of there, please, and thank you. That's an inspection. They can't test that hose and say, okay, this is gone. You know, it'll have to be a water main break that causes a back siphonage and sucks chlorinated water or whatever into the system. That's why they do inspections. You know, if
So we're paying for inspections and testing.
that's, you say what?
I don't think so. I think it.
Well, it all depends on, like President Prime was saying, HydroCorp will come out and do all of them. That's what they will do the inspections, and they can do the testing. They're a plumbing company. That's what they do. And that's what she's trying to say. You hire them, they'll do all the inspections, they'll make inspection reports out, and then they'll come back and do the testing on the testable
And if
devices
they're
that
not
need
in
to be tested.
compliance, they generate the report to send to the state, and they do follow-up to ensure that they are in compliance.
And we'll do follow-ups.
Right.
Okay, outside of that though, we have 3,000 rooftops, as I recall. Okay, we're gonna use 3,000. As I recall, you said they were gonna do it over a 5-year period.
Every house,
Every
once every 5 years.
So they're gonna come in and do everybody this year.
No, I don't, wait, we never participated in the program before, which we were supposed to be on it, so I'm not.
They
I thought you
will
said
be
we
done
had
this
to
year.
we had to at least show that we were starting something by
Yeah.
August or
Due diligence.
September, right?
There you go.
Right. We had to like start something.
I recall you saying they were gonna divide it into areas, so we divide that by 5, that gives us 600. So 600 times $10 is only $6,000. So I'm trying to wrap my brain around why this company is doing this so inexpensively. I just wanna make sure.
They're a national company, and it's around, he gave me a quote of about $10 a house per year.
So if we did go with the company though, we would still bid it, right? Because I don't think there's.
Oh, yeah, HydroCorp's just an example.
I said
Okay.
10,000 a month, it'd be less than.
I just want to ensure it's a visual, an inspection, and a test.
It does both, and if the house is not in compliance, they say this is how you're not in compliance, we will be back on this date to make sure you are in compliance, because that's what legal wants.
Oh, I see, they want to capture the work to bring people to compliance.
Yeah, they want people to be brought to compliance. So instead of us keeping the list of who's not in compliance and having somebody have to go back to make sure they are in compliance, and then generating the separate reports all along the way, it could be a $10 fee per household. And that's not to say that maybe the village couldn't absorb some of the costs. So, we want to have as minimal a financial impact on our residents as humanly possible. So
I did misstate a number. I said $10 a month, and the reality is it's less than $1 a month, right? It's $10 a year per resident. And if we supersede what Trustee Meeson was saying, that it's irrelevant if I have a sprinkler system or not, because you're going to get an inspection, and if required, is what I think I'm hearing, it's an inspection and if required a test. Then I think that sounds more palatable to say you're going to spend about $1 a month and you don't have to worry about this except give somebody access to your yard, right? Because I think these questions that are coming up now, when we throw a new bill, and $1 matters to some people, right? So $1 matters. We're going to have to be able to answer all these questions, right? And say this is why you got to do it, or why we recommend you do it this way.
Especially, like I brought it up to my parents in Macomb Township, they had no clue about this, and they said that their community isn't doing anything, which I know isn't.
They probably got the same letter we did.
Right, it probably isn't accurate, but it's going to raise questions.
Yeah.
this is something new, and everybody's gonna go, what the hell, where is this
Well,
coming from?
but they send out a mailer also to explain it, and of course, we'll put it out as a mailer as well, because once we establish what we can do about the water bills, we can include that on there. And I think it's important that the residents understand why we're at with the water bills, what we're doing to remediate the water bills, and if we do the cross-connection program, we could take a long, hard look at quotes from different companies. I'm not sure how many there are, but we could find out and see if the village could alleviate some of the pain of the cross-connection program. So, but I think I need from you the decision of looking into hiring a company to do this. Once we get that approved, then we can move forward, see how many companies there are, and then bring it back at the July meeting. And see if there's a way that we can not pass it along to the residents, or pass all of it along to the residents. So do we have a motion to explore corporations to handle the Eagle Cross Connection program?
So moved.
Support.
Been properly moved and supported. Who made the motion?
I did.
Okay. And support was?
I'll support.
Okay, Golly. All those in favor? And all those opposed?
Can I just say that being in person is so much easier than on Zoom?
Yeah.
Because that was so confusing last time. We talked, I couldn't, this makes much more sense now. So.
Well, the whole subject to me is still totally confusing.
Actually, what I can do is make you the contact person for the company, and he can explain it all to you like he explained it to me for half an hour.
I completely understand it. I don't need a POC.
all the conversation got down to was, oh, really? You run out of things to say. All right, item C, we have the temporary land development moratorium. We had, did we bring this up at the last council meeting? Preferably we kind of touched on it. Okay. Ms. Bonkowski, would you like to kind of explain? I talked to the chair of planning, Ms. Robson, and she was unable to be here tonight. She planned to be here. And what her input was is that the planning commission is working hard on reviewing the current zoning, changing some of the zoning or amending our zoning plan. This action, which has been used by other communities, puts the brakes on any new builds that, if permitted, might impact where the planning commission and ultimately the village wants to go with zoning. It could have an impact on the long-term objectives of the village. Did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think maybe council might be better to field the questions that people may have, because I think they're going to be legal driven. Do you agree with that?
What kind of questions do you
I don't know,
have?
whatever questions they may have. I don't really have anything to add to it. I would just like to affirm time, like to understand the timing. For example,
a time frame, put a set time frame on it?
yes, for example, the planning commission has a goal of bringing changes to the next council meeting. So what is the time frame before the changes would go into effect, and how does that equal to this moratorium, the length of the moratorium? Is it going to take 60 days? Is it going to take 120?
If we pass the resolution, we can always unpass the resolution. It doesn't matter. If we pass the resolution tonight, and they come up next month and say, hey, we're all done, we're ready to go within 30 days.
Well, we have to have public hearings. It's got to be published once it passes, am I correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Whatever the zoning changes are.
Correct, before they are, before they're the rule.
So is the zoning board ready to execute, I think is the, if we pass
Not
it.
so much that, but are we prepared? How long is this going to take? And are you?
How long is it going to take for you guys to get done with the master plan?
Again, I believe that we are going to recommend some changes at our next meeting, and then we're going to have a meeting after that. But before those changes go into effect, we have to have public hearings.
Okay, would you feel comfortable with a 90-day moratorium?
I'm asking what the time frame is.
Yeah.
I'm that, John.
I mean, if you look at the opinion that our office wrote, I mean, the issue of time is, is not such a big deal up to 6 months. Once you get outside of that, it gets scarier and scarier for the village as far as being able to defend it legally. Do not pass go on a year by far. So, I mean, if you wanted 6 months, the way I wrote the resolution, I obviously left the times all blank and everything in there. But I also put in there that, that obviously, like President Pridemore had said, that we can then with another resolution, either extend it longer if we need to, or of course rescind the existing moratorium. So we're pretty flexible on that time then.
And that was going to be the question I brought up, because looking at the resolution, there is no dates, and I didn't feel comfortable passing an indefinite resolution on.
Well, no, I left the blank for us to be filled in at the meeting so that we could, because I mean, I didn't know what you wanted to decide.
Certainly, we don't want to discourage new builds, but if we do have the master plan going forward, and we allow business to come in that doesn't really go in the direction that the planning commission maybe wants the development to go, it could be a problem.
Could we say that we'll pass the resolution, like we could fill in the resolution to say 6 months, but then also have a recurring unfinished business line item about revisiting, kind of like what we did with the state of emergency?
Yeah, you know what, I would be comfortable maybe with 3 months, and then if we need to extend it.
3 months, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, but do you think that would be okay?
That seems fair.
3 months?
You know, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not, I have reservations about it as a whole. We don't know who's gonna come through the door tomorrow and say, we wanna come here and we wanna do this and that. And, I mean, we can say, well, we have this moratorium for 6 months. You know, check back next month. I mean.
No, if somebody comes in and they have the fruit market that everybody wants, and they want to bring the fruit market here, this is something that is very flexible. We said that if it's appropriate, but I think what this is doing is giving us a chance to give the planning commission room to breathe as far as, because I understand, and I said it on the workshop, I understand there might be there were some proposed changes to some of the zoning minor ones. And we give you an opportunity to do that. But this is not carved in stone, it's a resolution. Certainly, you know, we can look at it. If something comes up that is significant, we could say.
Well, I don't think that's fair and equitable though, because then we're deciding who's coming and who's not. And that's.
No, we're deciding, as you are doing as a member of the planning commission, through zoning, you're deciding who goes where. You're doing that as a member of the planning commission. Through zoning.
I will agree with that, but I also feel that, as I stated, we don't know who's going to walk in the door tomorrow.
But again, if they go up to the planning commission, and I think you're the first guys they hit, if you guys tell us, make the decision of the board, this is in the village's best interest, then you come up to council. This is your ballpark.
I understand that, but I also feel that's not fair and equitable. Who are we to decide who can come and who can't? What if somebody comes with something that I don't like, or someone on the thing?
Well, as a member of the planning commission, you're supposed to be objective.
That's my point exactly. We're not being objective, we're picking and choosing. I'm going to support the team because I'm going to always choose what's best, you know what I mean, as a team. I'm going to be honest with you, yeah. But I do have reservations about it because I feel as if we just put a close sign at the entrance and we need that.
Temporarily, until we get our ducks in a row.
I get, well, we are getting our ducks in a row and we're working on it, but that doesn't change overnight. And again, if the, what was it, a fortune teller? I'm talking to you, Chris, because you participated. Do you remember somebody, was it a fortune teller that they said?
I'm out here in the audience.
Sorry, I apologize. We kind of laughed about, okay, a fortune teller wants to come in. Well.
If I may, I think what you're talking about, what you are saying is equal protection.
Equal protection.
So we're concerned about this, obviously. Equal protection is something that's implicated more strongly when you're dealing with protected classes, right?
Right.
Age, race, religion, all that kind of stuff. Land ownership, dissimilar treatment of land ownership is not really something that we have to worry about too much, at least for a 90-day moratorium. I mean, because the municipal concerns here are so important, and because we're not dealing with a protected class, we're operating on what we call, and you've heard this before, a rational basis. We only have to have some rational connection with what we're doing, and we can prevail in court on this. So I think that I'm right there with you. Like, obviously, I'm trepidatious about everything that would ever expose the village to any kind of litigation, but I think we're okay on that.
Okay. And the truth is, at the end of the day, that's my concern,
Yeah.
exposing us to litigation.
Sure, mine always. But we're okay here.
Okay. Do you want to sign this?
I should say, we can still get sued. I mean, anybody with $150 can go down there and sue us, but we'll prevail, at least in the short term, on this. Keep it reasonable.
Do we have any other questions or concerns? Do we have a resolution number?
2021-007.
And do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we adopt resolution 2021-007, a resolution approving a temporary moratorium on applications for building permits, land division, and zoning reviews with respect to new builds on vacant land without infrastructure in all zoning districts within the town, within the village. And I would ask that this is the moratorium is for 90 days to be reviewed in 3 months at the council meeting, whatever is 3 months from now.
Support.
September.
Okay. 90 days. And all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the water lateral benefit charge. We discussed this last month. It's an old piece of the water ordinance. I have a copy of the other. And there was an ordinance, did everyone have time to review the ordinance that would redact the water lateral benefit charge? Were there any questions on the ordinance? It would be an amendment to ordinance 304. Do we have an ordinance number?
386.
Make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 386, an amendment to section 25.4 of the existing Village of New Haven ordinance number 304 being codified at 495-51D13 to remove the water lateral benefit charge.
Support.
It has been properly moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Call from the floor. I'm sorry, call from the floor.
Today, I'm Louis Kincaid, a resident of New Haven. And I've read some meetings before, and I'm concerned about the pictures that was on the wall as president, and I still would like to know why were they removed. House Governor President.
But they can call from the floor. You can come up, and if you would like to wait until after the meeting, we can talk.
Pardon me?
I apologize. I can call from the floor. You can come up and make a statement. And if you would like to talk about the pictures, if you'd like to wait until after the meeting, it shouldn't be much longer. We can talk.
If it's much longer, we can talk?
No, the meeting won't be this much longer. If you want to wait till after the meeting, you and I can talk.
You and I talk?
Yeah.
That's what you told me before. And I don't want to talk with you in private. I'm thinking that maybe you can have the council folks take the pictures out, so maybe you should get with the council and let them vote on what they want to remove. Would that be fair?
We're not going to do that now.
No, I'm not talking now. Maybe the next meeting, table it to the next meeting. Because I don't think it was fair to remove. I know at one time you said there wasn't enough room, but there's more room there than it is here. I don't don't think when the new mayor of East Point, I don't think when she got elected, she went in removing pictures off the wall, taking them out. So what give you that privilege?
Want to talk after the meeting?
I get on the agenda for the next meeting. Thank you.
Call for the board.
Good evening. I just want to share a couple of opinions. I want to go back on this Eagle Cross connection. Yeah, this thing's been bouncing around. I've heard about it on Zoom and I've sat in on it, and I think there is some confusion. And while this whole cross connection thing, if you know anything about sprinkler systems, I'm sure most of you have them, and the vacuum breaker, a lot of communities in the past have always required inspection of their vacuum breakers. So it's nothing new that should have been done anyways. But of course, Eagle, in their attempt to cover their butts, because of all their mishaps over the last couple of years, they are constantly creating things to put on the residents. And I think from a village standpoint, your only concern should be sprinkler systems. And I think if you address sprinkler systems and identify the residents who have sprinklers, I think you're going to be covered. Because I keep hearing about 3,000 rooftops. If you try to charge everybody for a spigot, you're going to open up a can of worms that you may not be able to close. Okay? Concentrate on sprinklers. Now, the big headache is going to be trying to identify who has a sprinkler. Okay? And that's something that probably the DPW could do. You know, address 123 has a sprinkler. And supply that information to an outside contractor or send that resident a letter and say, this is what you must do. And if you don't do it, then we will have to do it for you and of course pass on the charge. But, you know, adding $1 to everybody's bill or $10 to everybody's bill, that is not how this should be handled. Let's identify the sprinklers and let's give them fair notice and opportunity to take care of it. Another issue, the other item that I'd like to address is that I would have to agree with Mrs. Bonkowski that this whole temporary moratorium, that is not a planning issue. That is not a planning issue, no way, shape, or form. The planning commission is not charged with creating moratoriums on building, okay? You know, you may think it is, that is a council decision. It should have been a council decision from day one, and it never should have been a planning commission topic. Thank you.
Chief.
Well, this is just a little something personal, but for the good of the order, I see that nobody wears masks anymore, and that's fine. We've all gotten taught. During this pandemic, I lived my life. I'm not paranoid about any of it. I traveled, I did things, but I also wore a mask, I washed my hands, and I tried to have social distancing. Now that people have gotten vaccinated, that's a wonderful thing. But it doesn't hurt to wear a mask. All of a sudden, nobody wants to wear a mask. Now, I'm only wearing it here because I wanted to bring this up. We have a lot of precautions, we have air scrubbers, and that's wonderful. But a mask not only is for corona, it's for the flu, it's for hay fever. It's amazing, if you wear a mask at this time of year with all this snow blowing around, your noses won't be as plugged up. So just for the good of the order, don't be afraid to wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, that's fine. I hate them. I hated them from day one. But I think they are just like wearing a seatbelt. If you don't ever get in an accident, you don't really need a seatbelt. But if you get in an accident, the seatbelt will save your life. Well, if you're going to be in a big crowded room with a lot of people, which we're not right now, and we've got all this, that's wonderful, but don't be afraid to wear a mask. It seems like people that I've talked to, they're all like, well, we had to wear them for a year, we're not going to wear them again. Don't be stubborn about it. I want to see all of you next year. I want to see all of you at my retirement party. So please wear masks if you can, and if you hate wearing them, that's fine. But that was all I want to say for the good of the order.
said call from the floor.
I'm sorry.
I'll help you out, President Pryor.
Thank you, appreciate it.
She said thank you, appreciate it. She said trustee Colley's awesome.
How does she do that?
Just saying, I don't know, she's doing it.
He's just translating.
Call from the table. Call from the table.
Call from the table.
I just wanted to thank all of the volunteers for our River Days. That was an amazing turnout. And I know the front of the building looks awesome. They also did work on the river and the park, I believe. So thank you again to all of the volunteers. You really made our community shine.
The medical marijuana caretaker ordinance, that just dissolved itself, or, because I apologize.
No, we're still working on some information that we got, some drugs. So we're still working on it, but that might still come up in front of the table.
Okay, thank you.
Call from the table.
Any updates on the litigation that's going on?
Well, they appealed to 2 higher courts, and both courts returned the case back down to the lower court. They appealed up to the Michigan Supreme Court. For those of you that may not be familiar, we are fighting the lease on this building. It has cost us so far $3 million and we don't own it. So we are challenging the lease between Phoenix Contracting and the Village of New Haven because that's a lot of money. So we're seeing what we can do. The attorneys for Phoenix Contracting appealed to a higher court to have the charge dismissed. It was not. They appealed to the Michigan Supreme Court, and the Michigan Supreme Court said, no, this should go back to the lower court. So we're still actively pursuing it. So when we find anything out, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can find some relief, because $3 million over the past 13 years is a lot of money, and we still have 12 years to go on the contract. So we're working on that.
Yeah,
I was just going to bring up July 9th, we have the fireworks at the, I think it's going to be at the New Haven High School. Okay. So we do have that taking place. I know there's still some things that are in flux with the planning of it, but mark your calendars.
And so far we have, I believe, 2 bands. We have the fireworks. We're going to have a kids zone with face painting, I believe, and
a bunch of food trucks, right?
yeah, a bunch of food trucks. But there was something else with the kids zone.
Bounce houses.
Yeah, bounce houses, 2 bounce houses. We're looking to get food trucks there. And of course, we're inviting all of our neighbors. The fireworks are being co-sponsored by the Lennox Township Council. They voted to approve to share the cost. So we'll be enjoying the New Haven Lennox Township fireworks. And we will also be dedicating the memorial tree that we're planting in Fountain Park. Last month, council voted to plant a tree in memory of our neighbors, and indeed, everyone around the world, the past 18 months or so that have passed from the pandemic. I purchased a tree. It's a scarlet maple that will be installed at Fountain Park. So in the fall, it should be putting on a beautiful scarlet display in memory of all those that we lost to the pandemic. And I'm working with the Anthons to get a dedication ceremony earlier that day. So the details, as we work them out, we'll get them out to everybody as soon as possible, and we hope to see everybody there.
You said that was July 9th, so it's Friday?
July 9th is a Friday. We have to do it on a Friday because the law says if you're going to expend public funds for a holiday like the 4th of July, you can just spend it 5 days before or 5 days after. We didn't want to hold it on a Wednesday or a Thursday. The 5th day after was Friday, and we talked about a possible rain date of a Saturday. But we did that so we could fall within the boundaries of being able to expend public funds on the celebration of Independence Day. So we hope to see everyone there.